Thanks, Peter. Appreciate the opportunity. So my name is Wayne Paterson. I'm the CEO of Anteris. What I want to talk to you today about today is the opportunity we have in terms of treating what is a disease that is quite a serious disease called aortic stenosis. We have three very distinct technologies that we bring together that are being developed in Australia to treat this disease. A little bit about the disease itself. So severe aortic stenosis has a very high rate of mortality if it's left untreated. And 1 in 8 elderly Australians actually has this disease, about 5 million people up here in the US as well. So it is fairly widespread. If it's not treated, within a couple of years, the rate of mortality is very, very high. So there is obviously a distinct need for a solution to treat these kind of patients. Now, just to give you a little bit of background about what this disease is all about. Aortic stenosis is really a disease of calcification. The majority of new cases are come about because the main valve in your heart, the aortic valve, calcifies heavily. Now, what that means is it reduces the size of the opening in that valve, and therefore your blood pressure goes up to what will be a very dangerous level. And if you think about it a little bit like the hose in your garden, as you're squeezing your hose and making that opening narrower, the pressure of the water coming out is higher. The valve is a little bit the same way. And you can see here the calcium buildup. That's what it looks like. That opening of the valve gets smaller and smaller, and your blood pressure gets up to very, very dangerous levels. Now, the way they really dealt with this disease in the past, once you get to the point of severe aortic stenosis, you really have to have that valve replaced. As mentioned earlier, the rate of death is very high if it's not replaced. So the way they did that traditionally is to go in there, crack your chest open, put your heart on bypass, and replace the valve, take out the valve and put in a valve that's generally made of animal collagen, which we all use. It has very good physical characteristics for a valve, and it's treated in a certain way to be able to make it suitable for humans. But there is a category of patients who really can't have this procedure because the risk of death on the table is very high. And that is quite an elderly group of patients, roughly around about 85 years of age. Those patients didn't really have a solution before. Now, a few years back, a couple of companies brought products to market, and basically they worked out a way to take that valve and rather than cracking your chest open, putting it onto a catheter and inserting that catheter into an artery down near your groin called the femoral artery, and putting that valve in place in your aorta, dropping the valve in and pulling out the catheter. Now, this procedure was really reserved for those elderly patients who didn't have a solution. So it was a great step forward to give folks a solution where they didn't have one. Now, this procedure is obviously a lot less intense. It takes maybe 40 minutes to get this done versus several hours, and the recovery times are very different, 6 weeks versus basically the next morning. So it is quite an interesting and important procedure. However, it's not really suitable for patients under about 85, and the reason for that is that the replacement valves in the market generally did not last more than about 5 years. Now, roughly at 85, the lifespan of the patient and the valve is going to be about the same. Now, these valves were not designed really to go that distance. They were designed really for that older group of patients. But what happened in the last couple of years is that the FDA has allowed the use of these products in younger patients, and that shifted the age of patients from roughly about 85 down to about 73 in 1 year. Now, these younger patients really have a different need from the valves that are currently available in the market. Firstly, younger patients obviously going to live longer. They're going to live 10, 15 years. So they need a valve that goes that long, and the current valves just do not go that distance. Secondly, they need a valve that actually works better. The current valves on the market do not, in fact, take you back to the normal pre-disease blood pressure measurements, the hemodynamics. They leave you roughly in a state of mild stenosis. So they take you from severe to mild, and then it starts to drop off again over time. So these younger patients are obviously more active. They're playing golf, they're walking around the block, whatever. Their cardiac output is going up. So they need a valve that is actually opening more like your normal valve and less like the current valves in the market. So this younger group of patients is not necessarily being served well by the current products in the market. When you think about our product, I want you to think about the evolution in technology that we saw some years back. I'm dating myself now, from VHS to DVD to streaming. The product we bring to market is a little bit like that. It follows that same course from these surgical valves to the first generation catheter-based valves to the second generation valves, which of course is the valve we're bringing to market. So a little bit about our company now. We're competing in a market worth about $10 billion US. That's obviously a very significant market. And we've brought three very clear technologies to the market to deal with that. The first one is ADAPT. This is the treatment that makes that collagen suitable for humans. And it's also the anti-calcification treatment. We have the best anti-calcification treatment in the world. And that's proven by data. We've got data sets that go out to 10 years showing this material doesn't calcify in humans. Now, remember, calcium is a really important part of this disease. That's how the disease starts. And these replacement valves do calcify heavily. So to be able to combat that is critically important. We believe we've got the best treatment in the world for that. Secondly, we took that material and turned it into a valve. We made the first 3D based catheter-based valve in the world. And that 3D single-piece valve is much more closely aligned to the normal valve that you have in your body. The other valves in the market right now are not single-piece. They're 3-piece valves. They're very complex, and they therefore don't anatomically work in the same way as your native valve, and ours does. Thirdly is the delivery system itself. Commisure is the catheter that we've designed to help deliver this valve into patients. Now, placing Anteris, really it does sit between, it's a convergence of medtech and biotech. And what that is all about is that the adapt part of our story, which is a chemical process, obviously you can't reverse engineer that. That's more of the biotech side. We're in a very big space, $10 billion US. And it's really only has a couple of competitors in that space. We're highly clinically differentiated, and we're filling a gap in the market, which is to make valves that actually last longer than what's in the market for these younger group of patients. We do have clinical superiority, but if you look down the bottom of my slide, there is a recipe book that you must follow to bring products to market globally in the medical space. I've done this with lots of products I've brought to market around the world. And the most important is having a group of doctors, physicians, on your medical advisory board who are highly credible, well-published, and so on. We've got some of the brightest minds in this space working with us and helping us to develop these products. And that is a sign of the credibility of the science we have so far. As mentioned, the space is very big, growing rapidly, and it's growing because these younger patients are getting these valves. So $10 billion year on year is obviously a very significant market. Now, the current products in the market are not bad. They're just not great for the younger patient group. And they really set out to achieve 4 basic areas. Predictable procedure, I think they've achieved that. The catheter-based approach is obviously a very good one. It's a lot easier, obviously, than doing surgery. Hemodynamics, that means the blood flow of the valve. The current products don't give normal hemodynamics. They certainly give better hemodynamics than what you had with disease. If you're an older patient, that's okay, but they don't take you back to the normal pre-disease state. So they fall short there. Incidence of complications, the current products are very well managed. And then there's durability. Durability refers to the length of time these valves will remain viable. The current valves really can decline really in 1 or 2 years, but typically around about 5 years. So they're not ever going to last the lifespan of these younger patients. Our valve, Duravar, really satisfies all four core areas here. A predictable procedure, it's a balloon-based catheter delivery system. We've got optimal hemodynamic performance. We've seen this in animal studies and in humans, of course. Because this is a 3D single-piece valve, which, by the way, you're born with a valve that's 3D single-piece, we're getting these normal hemodynamics, which the other valves are not getting, pre-disease hemodynamics, which we've shown in human patients. Our incidence of complications is pretty much in line with what else is out there at the moment. But durability, we've got our valves now running out to about 15 years on special machines that accelerate the aging. And we're really proving that this single-piece design, this unibody design valve, has much more structural integrity than the current valves in the market. And we look at the current valves in the market, Sapien and Core Valve. These are the 2 products that really make up the space. And the things to really focus on here is called the mean gradient, that's the blood pressure, and the opening area. And if you look at up here, you'll see the normal opening area pre-disease is about 3 centimeters squared. And by the time you get to severe stenosis, it's less than 1. And the blood pressures, normal is 5, and when you get to severe, it's greater than 40. It goes up to 50. Now, when we look at the current products that are in the market, on an average, and this is from a big study by Hahn et al., we can see really that those blood pressures are not anywhere near 5. When you come straight off the table, they're already quite elevated, and that's because that opening is also not anywhere near 3. It's half of what it should be. Whereas the Duravar valve gives you normal blood pressures right after the procedure, and based on the fact that the opening area is roughly in line with what is normal. So we've got a very different valve, but it's been designed that way. Now, we've gone head-to-head in studies against the 2 market leaders on the calcification side. We've tested our calcification treatment against theirs currently in the market. These are very good studies, and we've beaten both Edwards and Medtronic in that space. This bodes very well for the future because, of course, this is a disease of calcification. On the durability side, we've got our valves on these special machines that accelerate the aging now. Nobody, by the way, has these products in humans at 15 years. They haven't been around long enough. But we've shown that our valves last 15 years at least, because these valves are still going, some of them. way past 700 million cycles or beats. So that's very encouraging because this is a stress test. It tests the mechanical viability of these valves. And what we can see from this is that our valves really go the distance over a long period of time, and they don't decline in function as well. So we've gone into human patients. This is a DuraValve valve in a patient, done surgically, not done by the catheter, because we didn't have the catheter available at the time of this study, but it did prove the concept that this valve comes up with very normal gradients. Remember, 5 is normal, the blood pressure, and roughly 3 in that opening area. When we compare that to other valves, the same thing. We are far more in the normal range than anything that's available on the market right now. This is really important for patients who are active and going to exercise. So if you think about our product from the 3 core technologies, you've got the 3D single-piece valve. That's the only one of its kind. It's different by design, and it works far more closely to align with the anatomical correctness of your native valve. The calcification treatment called ADAPT is the best in the market. That's been proven. It's already FDA approved. And there's been a lot of studies that show this is superior. And then we've got the delivery system itself, the catheter. When you put these 3 technologies together, we are really in a very competitive position. So if you want to think about this product from a patient perspective, it lasts longer and it works better. And it's that simple. The durability part is very clear. Our product won't calcify, and it has far less mechanical wear and tear than the existing valve. So we know we're going to win on the durability side. The better outcome side, we have lower blood pressures because we have bigger openings of those valves, because we're designed differently and far more anatomically correct. So there's quite a few catalysts coming up. The next 6 months, the next 12 months, the next 18 months are going to be really busy within the company, but there are some really huge catalysts coming out, from an FDA approval for our study to the CE study commencing. That's the European regulatory approvals. Revenues coming in from our first TAVRs in that period of time. One of our human studies concluding, and many, many other studies that you can see up there. So there is actually quite a lot going on here. We're supported by an incredible advisory board. So these represent some of the biggest centers here in the States. Cleveland Clinic, of course. Professor Reardon there from Houston Methodist is probably top 1 to 3 in the world in this space. This is a validation of the quality of the science and the product at the moment, to have the support of physicians like this. So I'll finish it there. I think it's important to keep in mind that this is an Australian company. These are Australian inventions and technologies. And I think for me, it's also very important that we maintain that as we move forward and develop what will be a global healthcare company with the Australian flag hanging over it.